Howdy, with this video I want to show you Turnitin. That's what we call the plagiarism detector, but hopefully we're using it as a more positive tool where you can look at your essay, see the report, and correct any potential problems with like summary and paraphrase or whatever before you submit your final version of the essay. To see the report in action, I'm going to pull up my dummy student account. I am Joyce Mitchell. I'm not sure why he gave me that name. Maybe I'm not sure I figured out my stage name there, but anyway. To find your Turnitin report, and I do Turnitin reports for your drafts and your final versions, and I'll show you how you can see which Dropbox are doing that. You go to Assignments, the Dropbox folder, and where you see this little binocular sign, that's the Turnitin report. That's the D2L saying, hey, the instructor has your Turnitin report turned on, and you can go see your report. To see your reports, you're going to go over to completion status and hit this submission. If you have more than one submission, you'll see more than one Turnitin report. And you'll see the report there. You'll get a color code from yellow to orange to red or green. This red is bad, and we're going to see why here in a second. But that's where the report is. You'll just click on this color and you can see the report. And what Turnitin's saying is that somebody else has submitted this same information in a previous submission to Turnitin. So it may not actually be plagiarism. If you're doing a long quote, somebody else might have used that long quote, and there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's just somebody else has used that source in one of their essays somewhere among the millions or billions of papers in Turnitin. The problem here is that I just copied Shay's draft just to give an example of what a report would look like, and turned in saying, hey, somebody has already submitted that draft with a 98% similarity. And that's a problem. This is exactly what a plagiarized essay looks like, particularly one that's been copied straight off Wikipedia or something. This doesn't happen often, and that's why when it does happen, the instructor's kind of like, come on. That's a pretty lame attempt at cheating. But you can click on this number and it'll tell you where the similarity is coming from. This is saying this is 98% similar to another essay submitted to the Tennessee Board of Regents. D2L goes to the TBR servers. That's what Turnitin picks up. But you can kind of see it's going to highlight almost everything in the paper. I think the only reason it's not 100% is because it's not picking up some of the images. And this highlighting just says all this was submitted previously. And of course it was, because Joyce here is literally just submitting Shay's essay as her own. And this is what a plagiarized essay looks like. Again, I haven't had any problems like this so far in this class, and I don't expect to. Y'all are doing a good job. Well, that's kind of what it looks like on my side. So sometimes when students are like, I didn't plagiarize that, and it's like 98%, I'm like, yeah, okay. But I also want to show you what the more typical report looks like. Let me get into my account. I'm Eric Fish there. When I go to assignments, it's going to look a little differently than yours. So I get to see everybody's report, and we'll go to. I didn't label that right, did I? Hold on, that's going to drive me crazy while I'm trying to do this video. Medical essay. All right. But if I click on, you can see the plagiarism detector turned on. If I just click on the folder, it'll display everyone's report there. And at first, if you're kind of new to all this, 17%, 25%, like, oh my God, that's generally kind of normal. I'll check it, but I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I gotta, look at that one immediately. So you kind of scroll down, most of it's in the green, a couple of yellows. Pretty normal for a medical essay where you're doing a lot of research that other students have probably already done research on. You can see that Joyce Mitchell essay is popping up there at 98%. You can see how different that looks from everybody else's report. We'll click on Sarah's here and see what a typical report looks like. Excuse me. You gotta be patient. All right, so we'll go ahead and click on the number so we can see where it's saying some of this is coming from. And you can kind of see it's coming from Our topics about thyroid cancer, so it's coming from sources about thyroid cancer. Nothing unusual there. Turnitin will do some weird things, like it's saying, hey, somebody else used the header thyroid cancer and number 1. Well, of course they have. All Turnitin is saying is that somebody else has submitted this phrase or this word or whatever, or this sentence or this passage before, and it's already been submitted into Turnitin before. Which, yeah, somebody's probably done a paper on thyroid cancer somewhere in America or somewhere in the world at some point. And then you want to just kind of go through and see what it's highlighting. Thyroid cancer is one of the most cancers. Pretty common phrase. She's not plagiarizing anything there. I'm not sure what number 10 is. It says it's, somebody else from a different college has submitted this essay. Well, they might have used that phrase. It's going to be a fairly common topic, unfortunately. She did not plagiarize the letter A there. The scan showed a mass on the left side of her thyroid, which is a butterfly-shaped gland located in front of the neck. Want to watch out for sentences. She's not plagiarizing here. This is a pretty common phrase. If you do research on thyroid cancer, they compare it to a butterfly-shaped gland. So that's a fairly common phrase. Again, not plagiarizing or anything. Just using papillary thyroid cancer. It's just a technical term somebody else has used. And not plagiarizing. Nothing bad happening in this essay here. It's just highlighting little phrases, and it's like, well, okay. Somebody else has used the phrase, the thyroid gland is located, in a previous essay. Well, of course they have. It's probably going to highlight some of your sources, particularly URLs, things like that. Nothing wrong with that. Just means somebody else has used that source in an essay previously submitted to Turnitin, which no shock there. Should be highlighting short quotes, long quotes probably, if you're not the first person to use that long quote in an essay. So here, this long passage is a long quote that Sarah Beth is using. Nothing wrong with this. In fact, one kind of thing that's looking good is that when she uses the brackets and changes something within the quote, Turnitin is saying, hey, that's not part of the original quote. Good, that's probably means she's using brackets correctly. Same thing with the ellipses here, right? But there's nothing wrong with it highlighting long quotes as long as you're quoting word for word and citing your source. If it does something like this to your summary or paraphrase, you got a problem there. It's unusual for somebody to paraphrase something exactly the way you do in your essay. Sorry. And going down through the essay, again, it's going to probably highlight little silly stuff. There's no plagiarism happening there. Highlighting the URL. The treatment is very common. Again, that papillary thyroid cancer seems to be a phrase that Turnitin saying, hey, somebody else has used that. It's like, well, yeah, okay. But there's no plagiarism happening in this essay. So even though it's at almost 20% in the Turnitin report, everything's looking good about the essay. Kind of watch out for things like that. That's not plagiarism probably, but be careful that if you can, make sure you're using words and sentence structure. There's some things you can't change, obviously. You can't, there's not another word for papillary thyroid cancer. You can't, rephrase that in any way. It's highlighting brain fog, short-term memory loss, thinning hair. But she's talking about her mother's experience. That's not plagiarized, right? That could be attributed to anything like Alzheimer's or 1,000 other problems in life. Or just me being 56 years old. That's kind of a daily experience for me. So no plagiarism happening here. Everything's looking good with this report. It's highlighting her references page entries. That just means somebody else has used that same source in a previous essay, which there's nothing wrong with that. So good looking report there. Make sure you go through yours. If it's doing things like this, where it's just highlighting little phrases or things like that, nothing's wrong with that Turnitin report. You're not plagiarizing. But if it is kind of highlighting like a summary or paraphrase, it's not a long quote or a short quote, and it's highlighting a longer passage, you want to take a look at that and say, hey, whoa, maybe I forgot to put quote marks around that, or forgot to format that as a long quote. Or you might be accidentally plagiarizing a little bit, not putting summary and paraphrase in your own words and sentence structure. So hopefully this doesn't make you paranoid. But it's very important for students to know this because all the instructors at Northeast State have access to Turnitin. Some instructor goes up to Sarah Beth and says, your essay is 19%, you fail. Sarah Beth wants to be able to go like, let me see that report, because I did not plagiarize, and I don't think you're reading the report carefully. But like I said, it's a good tool to use before you turn in your final version of the essay. Let's take a look at what's going on in your paper. But I'm going to stop there. If you have questions about your Turnitin report, if you're like, oh my gosh, I highlighted this passage, can you look at this? I'm happy to do that. Well, please don't get paranoid about it. Just kind of use it as a good tool, as a final check on how you're using sources in your essay. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.